Hello, 2025. Richard. I don't know how to start it off. It's been three
No, you
months.
didn't. That was just like 4 seconds of awkward silence.
Yeah. I mean, it only just showed that we only just started recording, but yeah, 2025. Oh my God,
Yeah,
it's a whole new year. Haven't seen you guys and you, Richard, since last year. Gotta make that joke.
yeah. But a
Yep.
bit longer than that. Well, not a bit longer than last year, but a bit of an extended break it's been
A bit, yeah.
because of life.
Cause of life, uni.
Yeah.
That's my excuse. Take that as you will. But it a lot has happened.
A
We
lot
haven't
has.
talked about it,
No?
but yeah. So how I want to go through this, just to let you know and the listeners, I just want to go down from last place. So we're gonna start with Gorica and just up, and I'll just cover all the news, the transfers, and how their half season has gone, and our predictions for it. Which, I mean, we're a bit ways off, especially me. I mean, predicting Slovan to go down and then Kovacic to get the job and be in some kind of battle for Europe is not great. Uh, but yeah. Well, before we start, Richard, have you been?
um, I downloaded Balatro over Christmas, so that's
Oh,
basically been me, really.
I've seen so many friends and so many people fall just in, and I watched the Game Awards and I remember seeing like a card game being for like up for the Game of the Year. I think Bellagio was, and I was like, what is it? And I searched it up. For like, okay, I can see why people play it.
Yeah.
And then I just saw everybody, most of my friends just see it, buy it, play it, and just never hear from them again.
That's pretty much how it's been for the past 2 weeks or so. It's been me doing that, and then me just sort of checking WhatsApp notifications because obviously we're both part of
Yeah.
obviously ex favorite journalists WhatsApp group. So we
We're part of the Italian mob.
yeah we are, yes. I'm in the Casa Nostra. I'm trying to remember mafia groups. I'm in the Yakuza. That's basically how it's going at the minute. But yeah, otherwise good. Can't complain.
Yeah. Well, you know who hasn't been doing good,
Ooh, well,
especially away from home.
are we gonna go for Garita or are we gonna go for Nerbiets?
Let's wait to get to Dinamo. I mean, we
Okay.
won't have to. Dinamo won't be the last one. Surprisingly, they're not first. But yeah, I mean, Gorica, my God, they have gotten every single point this season at home. Away, they have nine matches, nine defeats. I mean, it's just performing badly away from home. I don't know what happens to Gorica when they just travel from Velika Gorica, but I don't want to know.
I mean, they play on a normal pitch when they play away from home. I think that's probably
Most of the
the
time.
yeah, that's the leveling factor. And I obviously we weren't overly positive about them at the start of the
No,
season. A couple of bits
I
of their
think you
business.
you you put them down to go. You put them down as 10th to go down. I think I put Slaven.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me. I mean, that was I think before they brought in Piaziti, but obviously he got injured.
Yeah,
Um,
I think he was out for 3 months at the end of October. Just I
yeah,
think right after our last episode, it was
yeah.
announced that he got injured against Istra.
And then I mean, obviously we'll mention the transfers that they've had in this January, but they're not impressive.
But there's a
Uh,
lot of them.
but yeah, there's a lot of them. But I mean, mentioned I think the two names that came today, Zante Erceg. Well, he wasn't
Yep.
particularly impressive last season. I think it's fair to say. And what is he now? 36.
Ante, oh, is he 36? Is he
He's getting
still?
up there.
He's 35.
35.
Yeah.
He's 36 this year. So
I-
I'll
in
cover that up.
December.
Yeah.
It's gonna his birthday was like 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Happy birthday. Um, but yeah, he's getting up. He's getting up there because obviously he had a fairly serious injury a couple of seasons ago. And when you get a serious injury when you're starting to enter your twilight years, then
Yeah,
that can have more of an impact. Which is something that concerns me. They brought in Gregor Sikisek from Maribor, who hasn't really been seen too much this season, and again, it's another one who has, in the recent past, had a very serious injury.
yeah,
Um, so you're bringing in compromised people who haven't played that much of late. Obviously mentioned Philip Church is coming as well. He's not, so he had the injury issues as recently, but again hasn't really been playing.
yeah. Hasn't I don't think he has played any minutes for Lokomotiv, if I remember correctly, this season.
Which,
I
given
mean,
how Lokomotiva have been this season, is
true. Actually,
telling
no.
you its own story.
He has 75 minutes in
There
five
you go.
matches.
Yeah, so it's not much, is it?
Yeah,
There's not an obvious improvement to the squad. I think it's fair to say. I think they've been
yeah,
relying on other teams getting not necessarily worse, because I'm sure there will be another team who have issues that we'll mention in a bit. Um, at least that that Goretzka's form picks up a little bit, and that another team's form stays not very good.
yeah. And they're also rumored. I mean, not rumored. It's essentially almost confirmed that Agonalesi and Ivan Fiolic, who was close to joining Lokomotiva, but now Goritz obviously have gotten some kind of cash, so
Mhm.
they're just spending it wherever they can.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did have. I mean, they did announce cash. I think it's like maybe September, October. It was just after the window that they would have some investment, which is
Yeah,
obviously
it's
good
coming.
for them. But it does seem like they're just it's panicky buys. Yeah, it's not a problem with Felix, not a problem with LAC. Again, more than proven at this level, but it's a lot of numbers.
It is. It's I think they've done now 6 transfers already in
Mhm.
January, which I mean a lot. Also counting on Payaziti coming back, which obviously after he got injured, they only won one game, and they also beat Varaždin penalties in the cup,
Mhm.
and that's all of it. Everything else is a loss.
Yeah, not promising.
Not promising. And their striker position, I mean, we mentioned Erceg is coming in, but I mean, Kolar has been fine, and I liked Gashi in the few minutes he got at the tail end of the year, and obviously
But
scored against Slaven.
yeah, but I mean, again, not the fringy. Uh, would they get in any other squad?
Probably not.
Yeah, exactly. I think the other thing they've had is Banic hasn't been as reliable. Or they've had a goalkeeping issue. I think
Yeah,
it's fair to say. So obviously Banic didn't start the season. Then there was injury. Then he came in, but he had a couple of games where he's just is Banic. You just shoot at him for 90 minutes and he just saves everything for 90 minutes. But then he's also got a couple where his concentration's dropped a bit and has cost them.
yeah. Obviously, he wasn't even. He was almost close to moving away, but then Radošić obviously got injured, and then obviously, I mean, the Gorica would do anything but play Žigar, I think, in goal
Yeah. And I mean, defensively, I know Chris Manic is linked somewhere. I can't remember where.
to Rijeka.
Yeah. Which I guess that might not be something that's on the cards given that they have been quite proactive in hiring centre backs, it seems.
They've been linked with almost every center back I've seen. Benkovic, Škoric today, and then some news came from Nacional today that Krizmanic wasn't ever on the cards for Rijeka, but I think that's false.
Yeah.
Especially considering that his contract is running out. So I mean, it's possibly the best buy you can get from a lower tier side in the HNL at the center back position.
Exactly. Yeah. And we know Mosquito loves a bargain.
I mean, obviously. But yeah, anything else to add about Gorica? Tsarevic as the manager after Vidovic got the sack has been okay, not the worst. I mean, he's only gotten points against Dinamo and Hajduk and
Mhm,
Istra, I think.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell at this point because it's not his team.
Yeah,
Um, and I mean, even then, I think probably when we restart in a couple of weeks, it's still probably not necessarily going to be his team because there's going to be a bonding, a settling in period just for the amount of players that they're bringing in, and that they still are going to lack a properly high NL level striker. I think it's fair to say.
yeah, and I think obviously with all the center backs they bring in after bringing back Bralic, I think it's fairly obvious that Tsarevic is gonna go back to the free at the back again, which
Mm-hmm.
he loves. But yeah, we'll see. Gorica, I mean, they're not the worst side. Šibenik, I think, has been worse this season for me.
Yeah, I think we could probably just segue straight into Dubnik,
Yeah,
um, because Dubnik started well,
very
and
well.
that's maybe what's possibly in their favor is that teams that start well can finish well. It might just be the case that when the leaves drop, the form does as
Yeah,
well. You do get that with just the personality of a side that can be streaky at the start and end of a season. It's what happens in the middle that's the issue. But they're still not very good. The things that they had going for them, it was Majic had a period of very good form at the start of the season. Um, Morrison centre back looked very good at the start, but towards the end of the autumn had looked a bit got a couple of sendings off, so did certainly look quite a bit ropier. And again, I think the similar sort of criticisms about Goritza in terms of the striking ranks applies to Sunik as well. It's not at the level it needs to be to really be anything beyond the bottom one or two at this level.
yeah, and as you mentioned, the striker position, their top scorer is Lovre Kulušić,
Yeah,
who's 18 and a midfielder.
yeah,
Santini, Morris, and Božić are tied for second place with 2 goals, and then you have everybody who scored just one.
mhm. And this Bozic's player, I like, obviously seen loads at Salih, but when you put him up front, he's not a striker.
Yeah,
He's a sort of a right winger playing on the right of the three. Was how he was best used at Selly when they were winning the title. But I don't know. I think we had that concern with them when they came up, which was they're not rudes.
yeah, they're
They've
not.
avoided that,
Thankfully,
thankfully.
thankfully, it
But
wasn't
then
really that hard.
no, but they weren't good, and that's really pretty much where we're at. And the if you're talking sort of about a difference between them and Goritza is Goritza have clearly have the finances to throw a bit of spare cash
Yeah,
at the squad and bring in reinforcements. Now we may doubt the quality of those reinforcements, but at least you can look at Goritza and say, okay, it's not a great squad, but it's got reasonable depth. If they lose a couple of players to injury, then they're going to be okay.
yeah,
With Sunik, they do not have that the leeway to be able to invest.
yeah. And as mentioning Šibenik's finances, they finally got their salaries sorted, which weren't paid to the players or the staff for a little while, which obviously could have been the reasons behind the players' poor form and just losing constantly.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, I think at the start of the December, they got their salaries, and I mean, they kind of showed in the matches against Rijeka, Istra, and Hajduk. Yeah, those three
Mm-hmm.
matches. Obviously, against against Istra, they got a last minute equalizer from Kulisic to save it to be 3-3. And against Hajduk, it was I mean, you score for 1-1 and then immediately concede straight after kickoff.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously they've not been active. Just checking. Someone called Aiden Liu is the only player who's come in so far.
Yeah. And they've
From
also, and Jakov Antonvasi has left and also joined Lokomotiva.
Yeah, so not great. I mean, again, Liu is from German regional leagues, so
Yeah.
you don't really know what sort of standard he's at. I think Lucas Falcao, the
Yeah,
striker we've got, I think he was at was a teammate,
same club.
which probably isn't that good an indication of his standard.
No,
Because we've not
no.
seen much from Falcao. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely the weakest on paper.
Yeah. I've also heard a rumor that Chabraya could join the club after he left Rijeka now, after his contract has been mutually terminated, because he hasn't been getting any minutes under Jalovic and has finally left. And I mean, essentially threw himself out of out of the squad, which just to force Rijeka to let him go. So
Yeah,
he succeeded.
well done.
One
But
way to get yourself out of a club. But yeah, I mean, I don't have much hope for Šibenik. They need to have some kind of transfer happen.
yeah, it's kind of the same as Goris. So really, it is just there is a position where they are really lacking, which is scoring. They don't have that quality there at the moment. They need to invest in that quality, but unlike Goris, they don't have the to say sort of the funding to go and do that investment. Whereas Goritza have done that investment, whether or not they've done it well is another matter.
Yeah, I think Tsarevic will eventually find something. It's definitely gonna take time to try out all of the players and find a formula that sticks. But I think eventually you will have one or two players in form that are just gonna carry you in some matches and to safety.
Yeah.
With Šibenik, it's gonna be really hard to see who that could be because nobody has really shown up so far.
No, I mean that's it. Majic was very good those first 3-4 weeks of the season. That's
Yeah,
really
but
been the
that's
closest they've had to it. Which if you can have that little sort of 4-week run from someone where it gets you 6-7 points, that might be enough. But it's a bigger ask now when you're down on confidence as a team than it was at the start of the season coming up.
Yeah. Well, let's move to Istra, who we had high hopes for before the start of the season, and they're eighth at the halfway point.
Which is
So,
not
yeah.
with our hopes.
Yeah, and they've also just changed managers. They went from Garcia to Tramezzani, two completely different philosophies, and they've done a 180 and gone back to Garcia,
Yeah.
which I mean doesn't make the least bit of sense. I mean, it makes sense that okay, he's a good manager, but in terms of you just finished bringing in players for Tramezzani's, man-to-man marking, high pressure system to back to Garcia's, wanting to have as much of the ball as possible and having good midfielders to be able to play that ball.
Yeah, and maybe I suppose we'll see what works really. They are again a bit of an unknown because of that change, but also because of how are these players going to adapt to that. Now, I very much adhere to the philosophy that if you're asking a team to move to a sort of that sort of slower possession based style, there isn't a player around at a professional level who does not have the innate technical abilities to be able to do that. There are some who can't necessarily do it well. There are some who, sort of for mental reasons, in terms of the decision making, in terms of the composure, will not do it very well.
Yeah.
Because they'll just get the ball and they just want to hoof it. and I can think of a few of a few names um, who fit into that category. But just from a pure, if you pass the ball to them, can they just pass the ball normally and do it well and do it reasonably quickly? Yes, of course they can. Of course they can. They're not, earning a living as a professional footballer if they're not able to do that. And
Yeah.
that is, that's not just saying at this level, that's at lower levels as well. So, there's the talent in there to be able to do what Garcia will want them to do. It's just takes time to sort of learn those patterns in terms of doing the passing effectively. It takes time to adjust mentally to be able to not opt for that. I don't say the long option, but for being more selective on the direct option, I think is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And also being a little bit slower in the transitional phases, because ultimately that was the thing that we were very positive about Easter 4, was that when they attack, they're back to front extremely quickly, very
Extremely.
rapid. What they didn't have was any composure.
Yeah.
They didn't make the most of those situations. Now, what are we going to see? Are we going to see sort of a team that's caught in two minds, or are we going to see a team that is able to do the build-up play quite well but still has composure issues, or are we going to see something that brings the best out of everyone? And I mean, I was listening last night to a fans forum for Carlisle United, and because that's how I roll, and listening to manager Mike Williamson, and I'd be fairly critical of Williamson because obviously I'm from around there, and I went to the game on New Year's Day where we were 2-1 up in the 93rd minute and lost 3-2. So
What?
I
I would be fuming.
I don't walk out of games before the final whistle, but when the third goal went in the
Yeah.
97th minute,
Yeah.
I was like, I know there's only a
Yeah.
minute left. I'm going. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's the only game I've walked out on like that, and even then I put up with a lot. But it was sort of how it was put across, because a lot of the criticism that goes towards him is that he wants this possession based football, but it's actually proven to be quite ineffective from an attacking perspective. And so what he was actually talking about when he sort of got the chance to explain his tactics was sort of actually the issue with the transition from having played that sort of direct transversal football to this very possession based football was not an issue with talent. It wasn't an issue with the actual philosophy of doing possession football itself. It was sort of flicking that switch in players' minds so that when they can't see a passing lane open to them, they're not just wasting the ball. And sort of pushing up that and basically giving possession back. I think it's probably quite telling you one of the big criticisms he had was that the team were in a position where sort of almost the turnover stat or the PPDA stat for those analytically minded was artificially inflated for them and artificially low for the opposition because that switch hadn't been flicked and they weren't thinking about actually what's the right option here that I should be taking, rather than I can't see anything, shit, let's just belt it.
Yeah, let's just hoof it.
And that's a very long-winded anecdote to say that's the dilemma that Garcia is going to have, and that's the dilemma that these players are going to have as well. It's it is clearly a big step because we're talking from that example, a manager who's had 3 months and 15, 16 games to try and get that in, and he's still saying, this is still very much a work in progress. I still really need to add people to actually bring that project along.
Yeah, and obviously, if we go back to the last time Garcia was at the club, Istra finished 5th with Cáceres and Petrushenko as the two central midfielders who did their jobs brilliantly, especially Cáceres in that season. But we'll see if somebody can fill their shoes, which are, I mean, big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I think that was one thing that Easter of that period always had. We had a very, very good, at least one very physical central midfielder, which they don't really have so much right now.
Yeah,
Um, because it's been very much based on going beyond it now. There are people there who've had sneaky good seasons, like Query, in particular.
yeah,
Um,
looking very good. Especially, I think he's produced 2 assists and 2 goals in the last 4 games.
yeah, and obviously they've sort of promoted Dukanak Meti as well over the winter. They've got quite good hopes for him as well. So that's potentially something, but it's a very young side.
Yeah. They're also probably gonna sell Filet. So one striker is out the door. I mean, they probably have too many strikers if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Uh, and they've also sold Andres Ferro. Oh, actually, not sold. Just mutually terminated this contract.
Hmm.
And they've today rumors have shown up that Lazio is interested in Valincic. So if there's some kind of money to be earned, that's probably a way to get it.
Yeah, that's a very good way to get it as well. And yeah, it'd be a very good move for him as well. I mean, in terms of the incomings, it's the guy from Auckland, Ukic, Stipe Ukic.
Oh yeah, Stipe
Yeah.
Jukic, yeah,
Um,
from New Zealand.
yeah, I mean, he's played A League. Sorry, not A League. He's played quite a lot in New Zealand, so I know he was very highly rated there. It's not a bad standard because it's a mid, quite a weird standard in terms of the New Zealand leagues and the Australian regional leagues. They're not bad
Yeah,
leagues at all. It's sort of because you don't have that free going up into A League. They have quite a similar problem to the MLS. In fact, in terms of you have players who will tend to stick in the second tier rather than taking a promotion because it's easier to be a big fish in a small pond and you tend to
yeah.
get a bit more money as well. So, it's a big move for him to move to Europe. We'll see, obviously, how that one goes. I mean, he's a midfielder, so may fill in the positions we've just criticised.
Yeah, we'll see how he does. Anything else about Istra? I mean, just in general, their season I mean, could be better. I think that's probably the sentence to describe their season because they've gotten close to winning some matches, but then, especially now in the at the end of the season, obviously leading 2-0 against Osijek, then Osijek scoring in 2 minutes to make it 2-2 against Šibenik, getting a red card, Kalušić getting a red, and then in the last second Šibenik ties it up.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. They're playing kids a lot of the time. You sort of look at all the forwards in the squad. There's no one over 21, over 24. So they have to sort of get that match sensibility, that composure uh, into them, and that's been the issue really this season more than anything else. They've had a couple of matches where they have you've just played badly.
Yeah,
Can't be helped. It happens to every side, but in the main, they've had the chances to do better than they have. I think the problem they've had is that where our predictions were wrong was that we thought, 4 5 months ago, that the journey from them to having those mental abilities and being ruthless, as it were, was going to be a much shorter one than it has been.
yeah, it's still ongoing,
Mm.
which obvious. I mean, we'll see. They're through in the cup, which is a good thing for them. Speaking of the cup, let's just quickly get that over with because I want to remind myself of the quarterfinals.
Oh, I've got them
Uh,
for me. Hajduk Rijeka, Slaven Gorta, Istra, Lokomotiva, and Dino hasn't been sorted yet. But
yeah, they'll probably win again. They need to play against Bjelovar, which is I think it's in February that match. So it's gonna take a while. And if Dinamo proceeds again in the Champions League, if they get a result against Arsenal or Milan, it's gonna be even longer until they play again in the cup.
It's going to be the old Football Manager problem when you end up at the end of the season and you just have like 3 games in 3 days.
Yeah. But yeah, Slaven Belupo Gori. I mean, let's. I mean, Hajduk Rijeka is a fun one. Obviously, at Poljud.
I mean, I don't know. It probably won't be a fun one to watch.
I mean, I was at the last Adriatic Derby, and that was a fun watch. Just fun from a neutral perspective, not from mine.
Yeah.
It's considering the goals. From Rijeka side, from our side, Kalik did a brilliant game. I went to the match with my friend who doesn't really follow the HNL. I just called him up like, "You want to go to Hajduk tomorrow?" And he's like, "Fine, sure." And Kalik scores that goal in the 7th minute. I'm like, he doesn't usually do that. And then he scores again. I'm like, dude, I know, like I told you, like Livaya Rakitic, and he's like, but Kalik, and I'm like, dude, this is not usually what Kalik does. Kalik usually just runs and does okay. But yeah, I mean, it was a fun match last time, so hopefully we could get those kind of derbies again. You know, filled with goals, even though Hajduk basically gifted 2 goals.
Yeah. And then so Henrik and Slaven Goretza, Istra Lokomotiva. It's top. It's going to end up as top 4 versus bottom 4. Actually, the quarters, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is intriguing, I suppose.
And I think the semis are Hajduk Rijeka versus the winner of Dinamo Osijek, most likely, if I'm
which is
not
what
mistaken. I think they've drawn it as that.
which is what you want, because at the end of
Yeah.
the day, you want a not Big 4 side in the final.
Yeah.
Just because it makes it more interesting every now and again.
Yeah, the last time we had somebody outside of the top 4 is
Was
Istra.
Istra, and that was a
Yeah.
hell of a game.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't good for Istra.
Was it
But they
6-3? 6-4, something like that. It was a stupid
Yeah,
score. I remember that.
I think it's 6-3, but the kits Istra produced for that game were amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see who gets. Maybe Lokomotiva could do it now that, you know, they're somewhat getting into form. But Slaven could also be a good shout. Imagine seeing Slaven in Europe again.
Yeah. That would be. We want to see that. It shared about it, definitely.
Yeah, we
Even
want
if
to
it's
see
not good for the
somebody else.
coefficient.
It's probably. I mean, it's not good this way or the other way. I would rather see Slaven lose than Hajduk lose to Rosenberg.
Yeah.
I would rather see that. Trust me. But yeah. I mean, I think we're done with Istra and the
Yeah.
short cup preview. And speaking of the team that's kind of entered some form, Lokomotiva.
Yeah. They've not done anything yet this winter, save for, as we mentioned, Church going to Goritza, but yeah, that's very much.
Yeah.
We saw, as we mentioned, how much he didn't play. And yeah, I mean, how much of it was their form and how much of it is the form of others is another.
Mudražja. And
Yeah.
Mudražja.
Yeah. We'll see, but you know, it's what they needed to end the autumn. 2 wins to, you know, really, it's, had they not got points there, well, had there been 2 defeats, then obviously they'd be bottom, and they'd be bottom by 3 points.
Yeah, so, but if my grandmother had wheels, she would have been a bike. So.
Exactly, yeah. So it's absolutely what they needed. You know, Madrasi just deciding, hey, why not? They started 2024 with Duyachok being inexplicably in form, ended 2024 with Gratia being inexplicably in form. So who's going to be inexplicably in form in the spring? We don't know. I mean, they're a sight better than Shibnik and Goritza, which is the important thing. They still don't. I think they still have some of the issues that those 2 sides have in terms of, you know, goals are still an issue. Okay, they scored I think 8 more than both of them, but still, if you do a chop up top, it's not the best thing in 2025.
Yeah.
Even at the young age of 34. Um, and for them, obviously you still have the potential that players may go this winter. I think Fetai has been looked at by quite a few clubs. I think they announced an extension, but I don't think it was actually an extension. I think it was triggering an option. It was one of
Yeah.
those where we're putting an extra year in your contract, but we're also probably putting a minimum fee clause so you can actually go somewhere for a decent amount of money and everyone's happy. I think it was that sort of deal. But again, the Lokomotiv, they've probably got a 12-year-old someone somewhere who's just going to
12-year-old
tear it up.
in
Yeah,
in 4 years' time.
Never mind in 4 years' time. They're probably just going to Freddie Adu the lad. Um,
Probably. I mean, I would have put it past them.
no, they've got him there somewhere in the youth system.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, also as we mentioned, Mudraja is the only one that scored a hat trick this season, and it was a fast one inside 8 minutes
Yeah.
against Gorica.
Yeah. Which again, so like you say, tells you a lot about Goritza and sort of the form that
Yeah.
Mudracia was on. I mean, particularly it's the end of the game as well. It was one of those, you concede one and then you're like, oh no, we've lost the game. Heads have gone and
Yeah.
he's away. And it's, I don't want to say it's easy to score a hat trick like that because obviously it's not easy to score a hat trick, but the mental impact that it has is the big thing there that allows you to be able to do that sort of 1-2, as happened at injury time on New Year's Day at a game I was at. So,
Yeah.
but for them, I mean, we sort of say, okay, they've come into it and come out of the autumn in good nick, but they open up with Rijeka away and Hajduk at home.
Yeah.
So, that momentum's probably going to stop. And I think then they follow that straight up again with Savin and Šibenik. So if they're able to come out of that spell with 5, maybe 6 points, then I think we're absolutely fine in saying they will be safe.
Yeah, very happy. Yeah.
They'll be looking at 6th or 5th rather than over the shoulders. But if not, then they'll be looking over the shoulders.
Yeah, we'll see also what they do in their transfers. As we mentioned, nothing going on. Only Fiolic was rumored to come in, but now Fiolic has turned to Gorica because more kaching. But yeah, I wanted to mention something. Oh yeah, Silvio Chabraya was rumored to, get fired, and then Nik Sajlovic was supposed to take over. Nothing happened. Not even close to that.
He's done a good job for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't understand why. Like, it was a bad spell, but it wasn't that bad. It was right after the loss against Osijek, I think, that the rumors started. But it was like you just beat Šibenik, you drew to Varaždin away, and you beat Dugopolje in the cup, and you got a decent draw in the cup, so you can reach a final. I didn't see really why, but obviously he reinforced then with a win against Dinamo and the 4-1 thumping of Gorica.
Yeah.
That nothing was really going on and that nothing should be going on.
Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, the job spec for Lokomotiva is about bringing players through more than it is about results.
Getting results.
He's shown he's good at bringing players through.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What more?
Yeah.
What more do you want?
What more do you want? Do you want Europe? Well, forget that. You know who's in a fight? Well, not really in a fight. They're just a point above Lokomotiva. But Slaven could, if they continue this form they've been having, could reach some kind of Europe, some kind of battle for Europe.
Yeah, probably not, but yeah.
Let's hope. Let's be optimistic.
I think through the cup is probably the likeliest way rather than anything through the league. But I mean, if you've got a good record against Dinamo, then you usually do have a pretty good chance in the cup.
Yeah,
And let's be honest, their record against Dinamo this season is pretty good.
yeah, a win, a 4-1 win, and a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, you take that every day of the week.
I mean, if
Um,
any side in the league will take that.
yeah, exactly. So they, obviously, as you've sort of hinted at, ended the autumn in very good form. Um, okay, yeah, can beat them on the final day, but that
Yeah,
was
but
on the
that
back
was
of
after 1, 2, 3, 4,
six,
5,
seven.
6, 7, if counting the cup.
No,
Actually, eight. Eight if you
eight
count
Captain
the
Cup. Yeah,
draw. Yeah, eight if you count Šibenik's draw, the draw against Šibenik at the end of October.
yeah. So there's not. I can't think of many times that's happened where Southern have gone on such an extended unbeaten run.
Yeah,
I could go back and look now, but I can't be bothered.
we could, but it's gonna
It's
probably
so
take a while.
yeah. It's just it's not happened for a few years probably. So that's a very good sign for them. They've got a decent squad. Yeah, I think some of the criticisms we had of all the teams around here still fit with them in terms of actually when you look at them in terms of what's there up front, is there really that much? No, probably not. But they've got a really solid game plan, a really solid manager, and good production from the midfield. And if they
Yeah,
are able to keep that together till the summer, they'll be they'll be absolutely fine. For one thing, I think there's a couple of things where they need to resolve this January, which is sending Robert Muric to a lower level. Like,
yeah.
have you heard of Dragovojac? Would you like to go? Something like that.
They have a nice kit.
Yeah, they've got. we'll buy you a couple of kits. We'll even pay them to put the name on the back of it, and yeah, we can announce you that way. There's that. There's having that sort of little bit of an X factor in the squad that they don't have, that they could do
Yeah,
with having. If it is just someone coming on from the bench as an older player to make that sort of difference, I think they could do with that little bit of extra creativity. They've done fine without it, but if you're talking about really pushing on to another level this season, that's probably the move you need to make. Otherwise, they don't really need to do much of anything at all. They're extremely solid, which isn't something we've said too much about Savin
yeah,
over recent seasons. You've got Jagosic, who is someone, again, if you can keep him till the end of the season, he's going to be worth more money to you in the summer than he is sold now, and you're having a difficult run-in. And they've got Gigic into good form.
yeah.
That's good to see, just in terms of obviously the fitness issues that he's had over recent years, to actually be back to something approaching his
Yeah,
best from when he was at Osijek.
and he's doing that on the other side of the pitch, where he's not usually playing. He's doing that on the left wing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they've got a lot of things going right for them, and there's no real reason for them to mess with anything.
Yeah. I mean, as you mentioned, Boric is done playing for Slaven.
Mm-hmm.
Jelic Balta has returned to Sarajevo, and Dominik Martinovic's contract has been terminated.
Mm-hmm. So
So they've had a few outgoings.
mm-hmm. Yeah, but nothing they couldn't have
Yeah,
done
no, yeah.
anyway.
Obviously. Oh, I also need to mention the new sticker album, which has Moric on the cover and Moric as the best player for for Slaven. Which I'm like, he hasn't played in 2 months before the album was released. So guys, who did this? Who approved this?
Is it just the only other people at Panini you'd heard of?
I think the teams actually like give the list and like the suggestions for the players that should be like best players and like key players, because they have like three key players and one, you know, best player.
I mean, you do get that. Is just the trouble with sticker albums in general, is that by the time you get them, they are horrendously out of date.
Yeah, my little friend group, they were like, they just need, why didn't they add managers? And like 2 days after, Tramezzani is out, Bielica is out, and I'm like, this is why.
This is why, but I've got a shiny Muric. Um,
I've got a shiny Muric and he's already left the club. What the? But yeah, I also think that Nestorovsky had a little bit of an injury. He was very good in the few matches he played.
Mhm.
So, I mean, compared to other strikers, like Botic had a good start to the season, then just kind of dipped. Lepenica has somewhat filled that role now after Nestorovsky got injured, quite well actually. So you know, Lepenica performing at Slaven, not something unheard of.
No, but it's not. It's being put into service rather than that being
Yeah.
what he's there for. He's there to foul people.
Well,
Let's be
listen,
honest.
listen. He's doing his job. I mean, his brother's task was pass the ball. Meanwhile, he had Agbepornu next to him, who just, I mean, he got a red again. I think not that long ago.
Yeah,
Agbepornu. Yeah.
and it was a really
Was
dumb one as well.
I mean, it's Agbepornu we're talking about,
Yeah, he's not played since actually. It was end of October that happened. Yeah,
and he hasn't played since.
no,
Oh, well then, Kovacic has had enough. I don't think he likes him quite quite much. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's looking good for Slaven. They're not going down as I predicted, so my prediction is gonna look very, very bad.
I mean, we'll wait because I think I predicted Hajduk to be fourth. I might have at the start of the season, so that's going to look pretty bad.
Hopefully, your free places off. Hopefully. Listen, if we're not gonna be first, might as well turn into the new Slaven who constantly finishes seventh. At least give the fans some consistency.
Yeah,
But yeah, let's move to Varaždin,
yeah,
a team that has major striker problems,
but they've got one specific striker problem, which is that
which is a major one.
yeah, which is just that Dabro isn't Dabro.
Yeah,
think
he's
is-
only scored. I mean, he scored the goal, which I mean we were, calling for
He's
a
not
long time.
kicked on though.
Yeah,
Unfortunately
he
for
scored
him.
and just stopped immediately after.
Yeah. And like you say, I mean, it's not. I hesitate to say it's a problem for them because at the end of the day, the fifth and the 6 points clear of seven. So
Yeah, but it could be way more.
it definitely could be way more. And I think the second problem, whether it's a problem or not, we'll find out, is that they are going to be a selling team this winter, whether they
Yeah.
like it or not.
Yeah, but that's the problem that you have when you actually, produce a very good half season in the HNL, and some players really do pop out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So should we talk about Mr. Sego then?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, so Hajduk are very much interested, and Shego is very much interested in coming back to Split, but Varaždin want cash, which Hajduk doesn't really have.
Yeah. But what they do have is 40% of the future fee.
Yeah, and Varaždin want to sell Shego for 2 million, and obviously 40% off. Hajduk could get him, and you add in Antunovic into the deal, you could get him for 800, 700K. But Hajduk need to come up with that money, which I mean isn't that hard. You just take a loan, which I mean Barcelona need to do that.
Hajduk are pulling the levers.
I'm comparing Hajduk to Barcelona. Let me live. Both are in major. Both have financial issues. We're the same.
Yeah. Well, only one of you have had Danny Olmo, to be fair. But maybe that's where he's going to spend the next half season. Who knows? Before going back to Barca. But yeah, I mean, it's so like you say. I mean, he's been absolutely excellent the first half season.
Yeah.
I think you went off the boil a little bit as things progressed, but still by far Razin's best player.
Best player, yeah.
And I think the good thing they had at the very start of the season was Shego and Mitrovsky were in similar form. Mitrovsky's form dipped a bit. Shego's has dipped a bit as well, but has dipped much less.
Yeah.
On top of, say, there's links for Belchar as well. I've said Rangers, AZ Alkmaar, and Club Brugge. I think were the three that I'd seen. So there's the potential that they could have quite a bit of change this winter. There's the potential also they could not.
Yeah, I think
that they'll cash in on someone, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But then it's what they do to replace it. But again, they're safe this season, and the actual sort of core, the spine of the squad, is really the players who aren't going to go anywhere.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention Antunovic, who's obviously, I mean, Hajduk want to make it a swap deal. Meanwhile, Vars, looking at it like these are two separate deals. Do not even try to make Antunovic into a swap deal for Strego. But Hajduk obviously not having the cash, just need to come up with something. And Antunovic, I mean, he's set to join Vars. Hajduk just need to get Strego for them to allow Antunovic to leave. But then obviously Antunovic was on the list to travel to Spain for the winter preparations with Hajduk, but obviously he was like, "Oh no, I'm injured. What are you gonna do now?" Oh no.
In that voice?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I mean, he's close from. I mean, he played at Jadran, my hometown team. So I mean, but probably not in that voice. But yeah, obviously, Butterstein won another striker. Obviously, if you're letting Shego go, you need somebody to at least fill the left winger position, but you also need somebody else as striker to put some pressure on Dobro. You see, you're not performing, so we're gonna let Antunovic play now that he's come in. So step your game up, please.
Yeah, and I mean that's for Varetine having been knocked out of the cup. That's probably where the issue for them comes in, because obviously, realistically, the avenue to Europe is not there for them. So you can't just sit and say, okay, well, let's allocate ourselves 200,000 euros that we're going to get next season into this season's budget, so we can push a little bit to see if we can actually get that. That economics doesn't work for them. So if they are going to get anything, it's really going to have to be sell to bring in. If you sell, then you're bringing in at least two players.
Yeah, you definitely need to bring. I mean,
they need to be
and they need some depth, because a few injuries would destroy the squad.
Yeah,
because they've been pretty consistent in their lineups, and if one or two players go missing, it's gonna be really hard.
Yeah, and I think you also mentioned about Sarr as well. If he was to go, I think they can weather that, or at least I think that's a 1-for-1. You just bring in a direct replacement for him, and that's about it. Keep Sego till summer, sort that out then, and then like I say, maybe add your second striker as a depth option. But Sego will be a much bigger miss, because just the amount of work he does down that left, the amount of creativity, just the amount of threat that he's got there. You would be looking at, you wouldn't be able for Varetine to replace him with a player as good. But on top of that, you also need to probably replace Dabra with a player better. To match the threat that you'd be losing in Sego.
Yeah, and I mean, just to surely finish up the Shego conversation. I think if a deal is to happen with Hajduk, it's probably gonna be at the end of the transfer window and in the middle of February, because I think that's the only time where Shego can be like, "Hey, I want to go there," and like obviously you had no other choice. You have no other choice now because
Yeah,
the transfer window has passed in all of Europe, and Hajduk is the only one that really wants me.
I think that's probably we'll see. Maybe that's what Shego's waiting for as well. That first 2 games back will actually, let's say, how it win both and the gap at the top's the same. You'd be like, okay, I want to push for Hajduk because I want to be part of the squad that's actually going to probably win something. If Hajduk don't, then you'd be like, okay, maybe let's look at someone else. Because as far as I understand, the other interest that they've had in Sego has been from Russia.
Yeah.
Which one you don't want to go to Russia in general. I hear it's a bad place at the minute. But
Well, then Hoja
but
went there, so
yeah, but two, also their transfer window is quite late as well.
yeah.
I think their transfer window might even go into March. So that pushes it. Like you say, everything sort of pushes for a decision towards the very end of the window, unless someone from Western Europe wants to get involved.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be the first or the last time that somebody would move to Russia, especially now. We obviously seen Hoja move, and I think somebody else moved last season. I forgot who. I think it was like from Lokomotiv or Slaven.
If it is, I've forgotten who it is as well.
Yeah, same. It's on the top of my tongue, but I forgot. But yeah, what else to mention about Watersdean? I mean, they've been good. It's same story as Istra. Could be much better if some players were performing a little bit better. Dobro. Uh, but yeah, everything in all, they're doing very good this season.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, they've got the second best defensive record in the league.
Yeah,
And that is one, they're very solid. And two, Daneka's a very good keeper. There won't be many seasons where they'll be sat halfway through the season having conceded 11 fewer goals than Dinamo.
I mean, yeah, but considering Dynamo's situation, it's not really a
Yeah,
massive surprise. I mean, they're only 3 points off Dynamo.
yeah,
The issue I have with Osijek and Varashin, they could have put Dynamo into fourth and like at least had that third place for a little while, but every time they got an opportunity, they just failed.
there's a lot of teams will be saying that about. Well, there's 4 teams will be saying that about.
Yeah.
Which far Dino won.
I mean, we'll get to the title race, which at one point was just like, does anybody want it? Why are you guys throwing, bottling at the same time? But yeah. Should we move to Osijek?
We shall.
They've had, I mean, they've after a very poor start, they've gotten they've gotten the things correctly and they've started playing better. It's
Yeah.
still up and down, but they're getting consistent points.
Yeah. They just needed, say, players to really settle in. Dantas, of course, as one. Jakubovic to start scoring, which he has done. And they were sort of just in that spiral, as we sort of said at the start of the season, where they were playing reasonably good football, but they weren't getting any reward for it.
Yeah.
Then they started playing bad football and getting reward for it, and now they've sort of found a happy medium. They're still not a consistent side. Obviously, if you're ending up with that draw against Istra, really, with how Istra were, they should have been winning that game. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Losing to Slaven as well, but at the same time, you drew to Hajduk, drew with Rijeka as well,
and beat Dynamo.
And yeah, so there's good results in there. There's just not the consistency still.
Yeah.
I imagine that's just basically all they're doing this winter break is we're just working on getting that consistency there. I know there's a couple of things they're wanting to do. I think they wanted to move Ademi on. Fair enough. It's not really done anything.
Yeah, I mean he was injured for most of the half season, so
yeah. And obviously Dantas, having had a good period, has got some interest, but again, if you're him, would you move now? Probably not.
Yeah, you're a free agent in the summer.
Yeah, and Soldo as well has had interest from outside, but again, I don't think there's um, any urgency
Urgency, yeah.
for him to move. So yeah, I think they're the one side who could just go into the next half season just unchanged, and
Yeah.
probably still improve for it. I think, like I say, that those sort of there will be that sort of little bit of wastage from the amount they brought in and some of it going. And I think Caval is, I don't know if he's going or has
I mean,
gone.
he's had medical problems. I think heart problems, if I'm remembering
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think
but
that's they'll probably either terminate his contract or just leave him in the squad until the contract expires or mutually terminated.
yeah. So there's little bits of budget that will be freed up, and I imagine they will probably bring in one, maybe two fringy players just to give them a little bit of depth. But I mean, they're fine. Like you say, if they started the season well, or even okay,
Yeah.
then they'd be third at least.
Yeah, and that would be they'd be above Dinamo definitely, and they would
Yeah,
be maybe like 3 points behind Hajduk and Rijeka,
yeah.
right in that middle. But Jose Boto
Mm-hmm.
has left the club, has joined Flamengo after stating that there was no contact. But obviously that changed very quickly after he said that.
Yeah, and you can understand it. I mean, his car did get shot
Yeah,
up.
yeah. I mean, I mean, Flamengo is a big club, and it's definitely a lot more money.
Yeah, so
We
good luck.
understand why.
We
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, but Rossi hasn't brought in any replacement at the sporting director position, so they're just now working with just the scouts that are at the club probably, and we'll see if I mean if they sell anybody, it's gonna be as we mentioned either Dantas or Soldo, even though there's really no reason to sell them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But yeah,
and Chatham has gone back. We should say as well.
I mean we knew that for 3 months.
We
we
knew
knew
that the day after he joined. Um,
we knew he would be coming back, just not this fast.
yes.
Oh my god, what a horrific loan! I think this goes up top as one of the worst loans to ever happen in football.
And I think we can also say it's for both sides as well. It's been one of the
Yeah,
worst loans because do you know what they really could have? Dinamo really could have done with not playing Zagorat for 2 months.
yeah. I mean, he's had a few good saves, but still, he's what 35.
I said he's on the Scott Carson deal.
Yeah, except he's actually playing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I was surprised that Zagoras is playing. They have Ivan Filipovic, who they brought in from Paris. Oh, he's 37, even older. Uh, my God, he's turning 38 in February.
Yeah.
So hopefully Nevestic is back. But yeah, I mean, just awful for Chow. Now we'll see what Dinamo does with him now. I don't know who would take him. I don't think anybody in the HNL would
I mean, I think
really.
I think you keep him.
Yeah, I think you could give him some chances now, especially now that Nevestic is coming back from an injury after a while. Zagorac hasn't been really good, so you can give him. I mean, Cannavaro is up, has cancelled any kind of transfer negotiations to sell somebody because he wants to see everybody. So
Yeah.
we'll see what Cannavaro does with Chablina. But
Yeah. Well, I think that means it's time to have a kind of Aro talk, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, two Italian. I mean, we would have had four Italians if we decided to keep Tramezzani, but oh well.
Yeah.
The Italian takeover isn't really happening, but it's slowly. We have two legends of the game and Federico Copitelli. Uh,
Two legends of the game and Gattuso. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it all happened very fast. Cannavaro was in talks from what he said 2 months before, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah. But in terms of the actual it was vote of confidence after the Varecine game for both
Yeah,
Maric and Bielsa, and then it seems like Bielsa and Maric fell out. So Maric was
yeah.
like, well, I can't work with this guy. And they're like, okay, you don't have to. Work with
Okay.
Fabio Cannavaro.
Well, they went for him this summer. That was
Mm-hmm.
pretty major news when it happened. But not this summer. Sorry, when Ikirovic got sacked. So yeah, and obviously Bielsa got that job. And I mean, when a club says in the HNL, the coach has full support of the board that he's gone in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think possibly he took the job as a bit of a recovery one for his reputation. And
And it
let's be
hasn't
quite
worked
honest,
out.
he's had two goes at Dinamo, and both times he has lost the job because he's fallen out with everyone.
Yeah, standard Bielsa.
Yeah, so I think any club coming in for him would have very much a buyer beware on him because
Yeah,
you
especially
just have to
considering his
pay.
last, yeah, and it's considering his last three jobs, which have been very short-lived.
Yeah, and I mean on top of that, I suppose the interesting thing is it is sort of transfer policy that seems to have been the thing that's really taken him down. The impression that I
Yeah,
had been getting was very much that Maric had been sidelined a bit, and Belzer was basically just sorting deals himself.
yeah,
It was almost dual rolling, and it was Orsic. It was apparently the deal that was the tipping point in terms of he wanted to bring in Orsic, and Maric was
Maric
like,
doesn't. No,
"No, we don't." I'm like, "Well, I do." So I'm just going to go and do it. And I'm like, "No, you're not.
no, you're not. You're gone.
I'm gonna tell the board on you." Um,
Did he say it in
yeah,
that voice?
yes, yes, he did. Fly on the wall. Um,
Yeah,
but at the same
I
time, their form was bloody terrible. So
yeah,
there's so many extenuating circumstances that he can always had an excuse in terms of the amount of injuries and things like that. But at the end of the day, you're Dinamo, and you can't go, as it was, 7 games without a win. Okay, two of those were Champions League,
yeah.
fair enough,
Okay,
but you're still Dinamo manager, and that
yeah, and you're
is going to
still
be
7 points.
unacceptable.
You're still 7 points behind the Rijeka and Hajduk, not just one club. You're behind two clubs by seven
Yeah,
points on the same amount of games.
yeah,
And this time last year it was 7 points, but you had two games in hand, which obviously a much better position. But yeah, Cannavaro has come in. I mean, big name, obviously massive name, and obviously won a Ballon d'Or, won the World Cup. But I mean, managerial wise, he's okay. Nothing really to stand out.
yeah. I mean, I think his was it. I can't remember which Shanghai club it was. Shanghai Port or Shanghai Shenhua, whichever Shanghai club he was at, he did do well. Um, but also he didn't really win any fans because who could have guessed this? A guy who won the Ballon d'Or as a centre back and is Italian likes playing really defensive football.
Who would have
So
guessed?
who would have guessed? So that's what Dinamo fans probably have to expect is that they'll have a very solid side, which is good because they conceded 4-7 in one
Yeah,
game.
they need that. They need defensive solidity immediately.
But at the same time, how much patience are they going to have for that? At the same time, is it going to be the case that they're earning 1 point rather than three in certain games,
Yeah,
or 1 point rather than zero as well? We'll see. It's hard to know how that'll work. I just don't think it'll be a very entertaining spell. Whatever happens, and I think the other problem that you have, the thing that sort of helps Cannavaro is that you coming off period one way you've got players coming back to form, coming back to fitness, but also Baturina was just being absolutely whipped until he couldn't get up
yeah,
um, over the autumn because that was all who was fit really. So we just got to send you out for 90 minutes every game, and
He was the only player that didn't get injured, and he suffered.
yeah, it was very much Bielsa's policy was almost if he dies, he dies, um, and that had a big impact on his form. I think the thing is, we've got to see how these players are going to fit in as well, because really we only
Yeah,
saw them under Jakirovic, in terms of the likes of Cordoba, in terms of, well, obviously Mamaye, we know he's gone, pretty much,
I mean,
but
Cannavaro probably wants to see him. He hasn't. I think he's in the squad for Turkey, so
mm,
maybe there's some kind of chance.
yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think it's only Boshai and Misic who haven't gone, isn't it?
Uh,
I think that's the two.
yeah, they're the only ones that are staying.
Yeah,
Or is it
um,
Sucic? Is it Misic or Sucic? Wait,
it's one of them.
yeah, it's one of them.
They were both they were both injured. It's one of them that's recovering. Obviously, Ogawara's gone back
Mm,
home
Yeah,
as
well, that was
well.
to be expected after his injury.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's Sucic,
so it's just,
not Misic.
well, yeah, and he was one of them. They're interchangeable at the base of the midfield. Um, so they're going to have a side that's he's going to have a side available that's better than anything Bielsa had available to him.
Yeah,
But at the same time, that provides issues in and of itself, because if you're, let's say, Vustokovic, you've come in, you've played quite a few games, you've played far more games than you probably expected to in the autumn, and not done badly. Let's be
yeah,
fair. Um, and you're now going to say, well, actually, Daddy's home, Daddy's fit. Um, enjoy the bench. Then that's going to have its own impact on what's already probably quite a fractious dressing room.
yeah,
If you're like sort of Pavic, again, very much pressed into service as an emergency, but again, he's not looked absolutely out of place or anything like that. You're going to look around and say, well, okay, I see you've already brought in Franjic who can play my role, so where am I in your plans?
yeah.
If
I
you're,
think I think also Franjic is just brought in because he can cover right back, central
I
midfield, left back. He can
yeah,
cover
I
everything.
agree that. I mean, I do think he'll be used as a fullback rather than as defensive
Yeah,
midfield. I think if you're like of people who were sidelined a bit by yeah, so you'll be looking at kind of our coming in and say, well, actually, come on, what are you going to do for me? If you're
yeah,
Cordoba, if you're RPG,
yeah,
um, so there's going to be quite a lot of people who need to be impressed by him. I think it's fair to say, and even though we're coming up a section which we sort of talked about how thin Dinamo's squad was because of injury, they've also got a blooming big squad.
yeah.
Particularly now when you add Vranic, when you add
Galicic.
Galicic as well, and anything else that they do, that is a big squad, and you've a lot of players who've been used, some by necessity, some by choice, who you have to keep happy. So that
Yeah,
it's going to be a real man management challenge for Cannavaro. I think it's the thing, and particularly when you have to hit the ground running, because if we're honest, Dinamo's title challenge should be dead and buried. By now.
yeah.
It should be. I
It
think
should have
this
been.
time, yeah, I think when we were sat at this time last season, um, top place was 39 points, and I think Dinamo was 34, something like that. Yeah. If you're saying if Rijeka or Hajduk had the same first half of the season as the leaders at the end of the last half season had, then Dino would be 10, 11 points behind.
Yeah,
And doesn't matter how good your spring going to be, you're going to really struggle to pull that gap back. So that's the pressure that they've got. I think also opening game isn't against Istra, it's against
it's
Arsenal.
Arsenal. Away too.
and away, and it's an Arsenal who have to actually get a result to confirm their
Yeah,
place. I think that was probably what they were hoping, was you'd have Arsenal Milan at the end, and there'd be very much dead rubbers for the two top five league sides, and you could just hopefully play against their reserves and get an easy
yeah,
point or two.
but it's
None of
not.
that. None of that
Yeah,
for either case. So you're going to have a difficult game against Arsenal, then an awkward game against Leicester. I think it's probably the best way of describing it. Then a very difficult
yeah,
game against Milan, and then
and then Osijek
Osijek.
away.
Yeah, and that's your opening 10 days of the spring.
Yeah,
And you could very easily come out of that with only one win.
yeah.
And
Realistically,
at that point that's a really big job to turn around.
yeah.
Particularly if Rijeka and Hajduk start well.
Yeah, if they go back to 10 points, that's too much. But obviously, it's Dinamo. We saw the form they entered last season under Jakirovic. Can Cannavaro get something like that? He very well could. But we'll
But
see.
I don't think he'd play a style of football that
Yeah,
would lend itself as much as Jakirovic's style of football once embedded did.
yeah. And I also want to mention that was it Germaniak that reported that Cannavaro was yelling to Petkovic, "Go back, Petkovic back." He wanted them to go back and defend, and I'm like, "Oh, you have some getting used to. You need to get used to something, and that is Petkovic not running."
Well, I think that's. He not at the best of times, particularly not just coming off a
Injury.
weird
Yeah,
injury. I think it's fair to say.
yeah,
Yeah, it's the type of injury that doesn't normally last as long as it actually lasted for.
yeah. And Dinamo is obviously looking to bring in another striker because obviously you don't want to be just on Kolenovic if Petkovic gets injured. Even though Kolenovic has been very good this season, but you still need somebody else. If who are you gonna bring in instead of Kolenovic if Petkovic is injured again or suspended?
Yeah,
So they've shown interest in Koliapu from CSK Sofia and Spendi from Cesena.
yeah. I like Spendy. The lad from Sophia has his metrics. I don't feel are sustainable.
I
Having a
think
look at those
I
stats.
saw Shumanov, the Bulgarian journalist, tagged me that he's probably gonna move to Lens in France, so that's probably done.
Yeah, but also didn't think his metrics were sort of the type of history he'd had and sort of the advanced stuff. I was looking at it like, no,
Yeah,
not for me, not for me.
fair enough. But yeah, we'll see. And they're also bringing in Greg Taylor. Probably should bring him in this year. Now,
You're welcome to him.
the reporting is that they're either gonna bring him in this winter if Celtic lets him go, or in the summer.
Yeah, if we can get Kieran Tierney in, bye. It is. I don't think anyone has a problem with Greg Taylor. It's just he is absolutely, to use a baseball term, he's zero WAR. Zero
I
wins
don't
against
watch
replacement.
baseball.
Wins against replacement is
Ah,
absolutely
okay.
as league average a player as you could get.
Well, they need a left back.
They do need a left back. I don't think he's necessarily. He's not someone I think most Celtic fans would miss in terms of quality. He's
Yeah.
by all accounts is a decent lad, and first came to prominence for kicking Joey Barton about 10 feet up in the air. So
Okay. Well. Okay. I
that's a
approve him
positive.
now. I approve him now. I didn't know that before. I now know that, and I completely approve.
Please do, there is a good 10 seconds to watch a YouTube video of Greg Taylor getting sent off for tackling Joey Barton in Kilmarnock
All right.
Rangers.
Well, I know what I'll have on
It's
repeat
enjoyable.
after I finish this. I know what I have on loop for an hour. What else? Marco Rog should get his loan extended. Cannavaro wants him, so that's probably gonna be a done deal as soon as Cannavaro wants him.
You always got to have more players to get injured.
Is that Dynamo season?
Yeah,
Every player you sign is just another injury.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, obviously Petr Sucic is obviously getting more interest by the day. Not surprising, but Turina also. So I don't, Dynamo won't sell anybody this winter. They have enough money, as we've mentioned ever since they've got into the Champions League. So no need to worry about cash in Zagreb.
Not at all. No. Sorry, I'm just sending you that video now.
Oh, thank you. uh, what else? Is there anything else that I've missed? I mean, Milan Badel produced an absolute masterclass of a quote. If Hajduk had a 4-point lead with 1 round to go, I would say Dinamo would be the champion. And dear Mr. Badel, I don't think that's how math works.
No.
I mean, I get the sentiment behind the quote. Like, yeah, Dinamo can do anything. They're Dinamo. They're always gonna be first, but like could have
Well,
probably phrased it better.
well, are they? Because 29 plus 7 equals Hajduk and Rijeka.
Yeah. Well, should we start with Hajduk then?
Yeah.
Huh. I mean, where to start? It's I mean, just from a perspective as a Hajduk fan, after we lost to Ružo Berok, I lost all hope in the season. All hope. I was like, yep, this is it. The season's over. I'll just enjoy a few matches here and there where we might beat Rijeka, Dinamo, and in the end we're tied for first, 7 points in front of Dinamo, and my hopes are again going up, which I hate because it could very much turn out to be similar to last season.
Yeah, this is the thing. They've not really given, save for actually the amount of points they've earned, there's not really given anyone any reason to believe in them, which is a strange thing to say for a side that are top.
Yeah.
But like you say, sort of going and watching that game in Calic being very good. You've got the sort of outliers where, okay, you've got a couple of players who've had spells of being very good. You've got Levaya being Levaya because that's just what he is. But they're not especially fun team to watch, let's be honest. They're not
No.
beating sides easily. Every single complaint we've had over Hajduk over the past 18 months is still absolutely
here.
present in this side.
Yeah.
But somehow it still has them joint top.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've been very up and down after having a very good run of form, but after losing to Varaždin, it's been 2 draws, a win against Dinamo, lost to Gorica, draw to Rijeka, and a win against Šibenik to end the year.
Yeah,
which
particularly as it sort of coincided with the worst of Dinamo's form as well.
Yeah,
that's kind of adding to the why should we believe in this side, because actually they've had opportunities to really put a gap in and they've not done it.
Yeah. But I mean, they're not playing well. Obviously, the football is not there. But Hajduk lacks. I mean, any kind of squad issue that we've had is still present for the last 2 seasons. Žaper gets injured. You don't have a central defensive midfielder that can hold the zone. You need to play Rakitic and Krovinovic, who don't really have the physical abilities, especially Rakitic at this age. Krovinovic isn't famous for his physical abilities. And I mean, Biuk isn't performing on the wing as some may have thought he would. So obviously, we're now looking to get Shego. Mlakar is very close to joining again. So Hajduk is only relying on ex-players joining for much less money, because that's really the only way that Hajduk can bring anybody in.
And even then, in terms of sales, Pukstas, that's gone off.
Yeah.
So there's the players that Gattuso would like to get rid of, but for the likes of Daraku, Berahu, no one's gonna really.
No one's gonna offer any money.
No one's gonna offer any money for them. So really, they're at the point where let's try and just pay off the contract and go.
Yeah,
if you can. So which leaves Durdov really as about
Durdov. Yeah, I was gonna say Durdov is the only option. Obviously, you're just selling the potential 16.
Yeah.
you're just gonna be earning off that, which is the same as Vuskovic. But please, this time, do not, please, for the love of God, not put a sell-on clause, because we got absolutely ducked over with Perisic. So let's not do that again.
Yeah. So it's so difficult to. They're just not an exciting side, and they're difficult to really say much about as a result.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think the only way you can say that Hajduk wins the title is through Livaya and Gattuso. Gattuso, just because he's a positive influence in the dressing room, the players obviously love him. He's obviously been he's a good balance of discipline and a good relationship with the players, which you didn't have with Karoglan. You only had the relationship with the players, which eventually fell through
yeah,
because you had no discipline.
yeah, and he's been there and done that, and that's
Yeah,
something that you kind of have to have in a title winning squad, is to have that knowledge and that, I don't want to say steel because that's really cliche, but that sort of experience, that sort of that know-how of how to win stuff. But at the same time, as we saw at the start of the season with with the Perisic situation as well, if things start going awry, then how quickly does that pressure become too much for him? Because
yeah,
obviously, when you had a press conference with him at the start of the season, it was often quite entertaining.
yeah. But I mean, yeah, as I said, if Hajduk is gonna win, it's probably just Gattuso and Levi and maybe somebody third. Just pop. I mean,
Yeah.
Rakitic is obviously performing every game, very good,
Mhm.
but somebody needs to be putting in the goals and the assists, contributing to the goals, which Levi
Mhm.
is the only one doing.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, Levia, as great as he has been, we all know that he has a period of unavailability every season at some
Yeah.
point, and that tends to be the point Hajduk seasons go off the rails.
Well,
And we've not
hopefully
had
this
that period
season.
yet.
Yeah, hopefully this season that doesn't happen, because we are leading on Levi as, I mean, 100%.
Mhm.
It's yeah. So yeah. Obviously, I gotta mention the bicycle kick against Shibanik. Just Maradona-esque. I was just like, yep, he's still here. He's still on top of his form. Uh, but yeah, it's. I have hope. Obviously, the only hope I have is that we could just push through every game, just win by one goal, and that's it.
Yeah, I suppose to the people who can extinguish that hope, Rijeka. Unbeaten,
Yeah, unbeaten, but same amount of points as Hajduk.
yeah, because 9 wins, 9 draws.
Perfectly balanced.
Perfectly balanced, but I mean, again, it's the same as we said about Hajduk is, you've had the opportunities to put this to bed and you've not done so. So are you going to end up at the end of the season finding with your pants down?
Yeah.
Pretty much. They've got a very good fee for Galicic. I think it's fair to say, and obviously with the sell on for Yankovic stripped out of his deal as part of that, I think that's um, a great bit of business by
Yeah.
Misiewicz. I think they've got
Well,
he's
I mean,
replaceable.
yeah. The problem with that deal is Rijeka fans are absolutely, I mean, furious. I think is the
Yeah,
fair. Obviously, selling to a title rival you're facing is not the thing you want, but I think they could have gotten more. Obviously, you're relying on Jankovic getting a good transfer for that to really pay off. Because if you sell him for like 3 million, that's 1.5 billion. You get more than you would have without
yeah.
selling Galasic to Dinamo.
I think it's probably they've got an idea of how much they'll be able to get for him.
Yeah,
So it's an educated guess. Assuming Yankovic doesn't get injured or anything like that, they'll be fine. The problem that they have is goals.
yeah,
And again,
no
it feels like we
striker.
said this as almost every side in the division needs a striker.
Yeah,
But yeah, need to spend some of that money on a striker.
Yeah, they really knew. So obviously, Andrich is out of the club. Perica, he's coming back from an injury, so maybe he can get something going. Dogan, I mean, he scores today in a friendly against the Slovenian side, Primorac.
Primoye.
If I'm yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Primorje. So yeah, I mean, he scored, but it's only a friendly, so we'll see if if they can bring anybody in. They have some cash now to spend, so we'll see
And
what they can
plus,
do.
that cash probably means they don't have to do anything else this window.
Yeah, no,
Um, because they do have plenty of people I'm sure people would like to come in and buy, but it would be a unless someone puts in a I can't turn down this amount of money for Tony Fruit, for example. That's the only bids that they'd really be taking. I think Miskovic was sort of talking about recruitment. It's like, yeah, even before we saw Galsic, we were looking at bringing in about 5 players, and we have them reasonably close to
yeah,
completion anyway. So it's not. It feels like it's a very well planned. Yes, you're selling to a title rival. Yes, it's not great optics, but it kind of it all fits in. And Rijeka rarely come out of a window looking worse than they did going into it, aside from the nightmare season a couple of seasons ago.
yeah. Let's not mention that.
Yeah,
I mean, what else? I mean, obviously Orsic, that deal is off now, most likely because he's just taking too long to respond because he's hoping that Cannavaro would, maybe like be like to Maric, hey, the Bielitsa wanted him in, I want him to, but it doesn't seem to be happening.
Marriage be like, not this guy again.
And then you're out. Give me Andrea Pirlo now,
Yeah.
okay. But yeah, they've also reportedly had an offer for Dan Petrovic, which they refused for 2 million.
I didn't take him now.
And
I'd
yeah,
have
yeah,
bitten
I would
hands
have.
off for that.
Yeah, I would have too. I mean, I think if you did sell Petrovic for 2 million, I don't think you need to sell Galasic for until the summer. I think you can keep him until the summer. I mean, yeah,
Depends if you wanted to go.
yeah, it really does. But what else? Salahi, obviously his contract expires. I mean, same story last season, but this time it's still ongoing and nothing has happened.
Mm-hmm.
They've only sat down, but nothing concrete yet. So we'll see if Rijeka can extend his contract, or he may move this winter because you want to cash in.
Yeah, I think they've been quite quiet in terms of their actual incoming business. Like you say, there's only Orsic really you've seen seen linked too strongly that isn't a centre back.
Yeah,
Which is interesting. I want to know who else was coming in really before making any sort of prediction as to how they'll do. I think they have more about them than Hajduk, but in part you say that only because we've seen them be quite consistent over the past 18 months,
yeah,
whereas Hajduk have been consistent only in not sorting out their problems over the past 18 months. Rijeka is, like I say, their issue is that lack of a striker.
yeah. I mean,
And
they're playing Tony Fruk at striker now, which
yeah,
obviously,
and you can't rely on them just spanking goals in from distance. That's been an issue for them. They rely so heavily on the midfield, but I think there's less things for them to improve to become a side that will win the title than there are for Hajduk to improve.
yeah, definitely, yeah,
The only problem that they have is that Dino don't need to improve anything aside from having everyone fit.
yeah. And Cannavaro actually,
Being any good,
producing,
yeah.
yeah, producing anything. So yeah, they're probably. Who would you say are the favorites at this point? Eighth of January.
I think, if I remember rightly, the bookies have Demo and Hajduk pretty much level and Rijeka a bit behind.
Yeah.
I would probably have Rijeka and Dynamo level and Hajduk a bit behind.
How would I put it?
I think of the three, I will probably say Rijeka right now, because as much as Dynamo have the quality there in the squad, I think it'll take Cannavaro a little while, and I think they'll be a bit draw happy.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the first 4 games, as we mentioned, tough.
Yeah.
You're facing Garcia for the first time against Istra again
Hmm.
after Arsenal. Then you obviously have a game that's. I mean, the Milan game is the only one game that you can really hope to get something.
Yeah.
It's because it's at the Maximir, so you're just hoping that Milan is just like, what the fuck is? Where are we? Why are we playing here? Why is this even allowed?
Why is there an empty stand?
And we conceded.
Yeah. I think for Hajduk, like I said, there's the one big variable, which is if Levadia stays fit. If he does stay fit, they can win the title. If he doesn't stay fit, well, then they're going to have 4 or 5 games when they're just crap,
Yeah,
and where it falls away. And I also don't think they've got it in the squad there mentally to be in that sort of situation where they're under pressure and they're having to come back from behind and actually do that. I don't
yeah,
think it's there. I think for Rijeka, you're coming for a side that's had the experience of last season, and you're going to have to use that well to do it.
yeah,
But I think that sort of learning experience probably prepped them for this season. I've got to run.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'll share my short predictions and then
Yes.
end the episode. But
All right.
yeah,
Cool.
we'll see when the next episode will be. Maybe in 2 weeks' time. I don't think we'll do next week, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's no point next week because there's no football.
I mean, there's no football now.
There's no football, but there's transfers and updates. I mean,
Exactly.
I can tell you what jokers I'm playing in the last row. Goodbye.
But anyways, yeah. Have a good night.
You too, man.
All right. Let me finish off. So, how would I put my predictions? It's hard for me to put Dynamo third. I want to like say like yeah, Rijeka and Hajduk are like 35% both, and then yeah, then I give 30% to Dynamo, and but it's hard to see that. Obviously, as a Hajduk fan, I'm more of a pessimist than I'm an optimist. Especially after last season, hard to see anything in a positive light. Uh, but yeah, the only way I see Hajduk winning is Levadia staying fit, Gattuso just being Gattuso because he's probably the best option Hajduk have gotten this season as their manager. I don't think anybody else could have been in this position. But yeah, he's really fallen right with the squad, which Hajduk need, and the discipline is there, which Hajduk also needed after Karoglan just didn't have any discipline with the squad. But yeah, I think I would put Rijeka at 35, Dinamo at Dinamo and Hajduk at 30. 30. Then I would have to put Rijeka at 40, but that's too much. Let's give the slight edge to Dinamo. Let's put Rijeka at 35. Let's put Dinamo at 33 and Hajduk at 32. Very close. Very close. But hopefully this season it actually lasts. Like last season was very entertaining with Rijeka and Dinamo going into that match at the end of the season with like 2 rounds to go or 3 rounds to go after it. And yeah, we'll see. It's going to be definitely interesting because I think Dinamo and Hajduk play with 3 games to go, and Hajduk Rijeka play with 1 game to go after the game. So if it's close, it's going to be really close, and it's going to be decided on the second to last day, most likely. Would be my prediction currently, but yeah. So right now, Rijeka favorites for both of us. Yeah, I hope Hajduk can do it, but it's hard to put Dinamo in the bin. It's really hard to do every season, especially after last season. They produced that miracle of a second of a spring. But yeah, we'll see. So we're back somewhat after just 2.5 months, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, 2.5 months. I hope you had nice holidays and you spent the new year well. And I hope that 2025 is going to be a pretty good year again for the podcast. Last year was very good after we returned in March. I think we returned the podcast in March. So thank you for listening. 2024 was very good podcast wise and just account wise for me on Twitter. And thank you for listening. And I hope this year hopefully we're more consistent. I'm sorry for the two-month break for anybody that was really like following it and really wants the English podcast to Croatian football and just the HNL in general. So yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you probably in 2 weeks' time. I don't think we'll do next week, but 2 weeks' time you can probably expect a new episode. Anyways, have a good night, and once again, have a happy 2025.